So I want to make a short video about import duties and about open versus closed borders, because I've seen some discussions in the media and online about how closed borders maybe could make your country better off. For example, if your country is wealthy, then open borders would make it more poor. And that's of course completely wrong. And it's something that Donald Trump said in his election campaign, and I really think he doesn't believe in that, because he's a businessman. He knows how to make money, and he also imports a lot of goods into the United States from China and all over the world. So he knows that open borders is a really important thing for the U.S. economy and economies all over the world, and closing down the borders will make your country more poor, not more rich. And of course, when you are running an election campaign, you are not only speaking to economists, so you don't always have to tell people the truth. You need to tell them what they want to hear. So I really believe that every businessman, every economist in the world, they already know this, but I'm just I don't know, I want to make a video because maybe someone doesn't know it, maybe. So for example, this random site, yeah, it's pretty popular. They're asking economists all over the world about different questions about everything in economics. And this one is on import duties. So if you have import duties on merchandise, for example cars or air conditioners, would it make the US economy better off? No, it wouldn't. Of course it wouldn't. Not a single economist thinks that, because it's just not true. They know it, they have studied it, and it's such a basic principle in economy. And they are not the only asking economists from one side of the spectrum. They're asking all different kind of economics. Some of these guys are communists, some of them are hard libertarian. They are from all over the political spectrum, from all over the United States, from different kind of universities. They are really different, and they are voting for different parties, and they pretty much agree. Okay, there's disagree and strongly disagree. That's that, okay? That's the disagreement they have. And even low-skilled immigration, is it good for the economy or bad for the economy? It's good for the economy. Of course it is. They've studied this. They know it because they can see the numbers. So if you only go after the numbers, it's good for the economy. That's it. But of course, that's not only the only thing people are talking about. They're also talking about their own race and how they want to remain their own race and stuff like that. But that's not economics. What I want to tell is that as a worker, there's some need to fit in. So a worker needs to fit in. He needs to adapt to the society. If the society adapts, if his job becomes obsolete, then he needs to get another job. So he needs to adapt into these different categories in the society, different work skills. And you need a high education, and you need to sustain your education, always educate yourself, and then get a new education when you need that, and travel too, because maybe in your city, let's say you have a coal plant, it goes out of business. You need to move to another industry in another city. That's what we do. That's what workers do. You need to move around. Maybe you can move to another country, and that's what makes a healthy economy. When people and workers adapt, then we get a healthy economy. And that's just how it is, because I know that unions try to protect their certain industry, but overall for the economy, it's pretty bad. Because someone have to pay more taxes to pay these workers to keep their wages or keep their jobs, so they can work in the coal industry. Because at some point, the coal industry won't produce any profit at all. Like it's just a random example, but it won't produce profit, but the union will still want the workers to stay employed. So then the government will have to subsidize the workers. They won't produce any profit, but they're still voting on the politicians. So they have a lot of power. This actually happens here, for example, in the import tariff on tires from China. Why? Because the union goes to the president or goes to the politicians in USA and asks them to put a tariff on tires, because then their industry that's losing money can sustain itself, and they can at least not fire as many workers as they would need to, because these workers they want to remain in the job. In actuality, they should do this. They should fit into new category. I'm not saying everyone can do this. I'm not saying it's something you should do. If you don't want another education, that's fine with me. I'm not there saying you should do anything. I'm just saying this is what's good for the economy. This. What else? For example, we had this is from Planet Money. They had a small episode about the BlackBerry that they want to produce internally in Argentina, and of course it was a huge disaster. It was really, really expensive, and they put huge tariff on all imports of cell phones. So you had to buy BlackBerries, but then you can smuggle BlackBerries into Argentina and earn a ton of money on that, because it's just cheaper to make them in other countries, because they are experts are making them. The experts are making them cheap. They're not just setting up random industries and protecting them. So they could not compete, and they had to close down. And the president that ran on all of this to protect their market, protect their borders, she lost the country billions and billions of dollars. That's a really bad thing. And another example I can give of that is, for example, the Venezuela. They have a lot of natural resources, so they of course the leadership in Venezuela can just protect those resources and kick all industries out. So all industries will not go back into Venezuela, because all refineries have been taken over. So of course they won't go back, because they don't know if they will be taken over yet again. But the leadership in Venezuela can just sell the oil and remain rich. They don't need no human capital at all. They just sell the oil. They don't care about the people starving. So nationalizing like that, yeah, that's the leadership doing that, because they're greedy. Also, the leadership is actually running the oil industry in Venezuela. That's why it's producing so little oil, because they're not putting experts in leadership positions. They have put just family members in leadership positions. And the opposite example is the Chicago Boys in Chile. They went to Chile to educate the politicians there and the government employees and other economists about how you can run a country successfully economically. So they proclaimed that privatization of different companies and the marketplace and the competition was a really good thing. And Chile is now the richest country per capita in South America. So it has clearly worked. It has worked since the 70s, and we still see it working. And Chile is, it's a good country in South America. Of course, I'm not saying they took over all the political activities in Chile. There are still a lot of troubles in other areas, but in economically they are well off. So that's at least a good thing. And in Hong Kong, you also see Hong Kong versus China. You have Hong Kong with the free market, with trading, and trading with other countries too, importing goods, exporting goods, getting rich, getting a lot of money, while China is had stayed much poor, because they have firstly they have a long history of closed borders. So they have had a long history of not importing technology and not selling goods, not importing goods. So that's also why Japan attacked them, because they were such an easy target. They hardly had the steel industry, they hardly had the new modern military equipment. And why not? Because they just didn't exchange goods, they didn't exchange knowledge and stuff like that. So of course they were kind of stuck. Let's see. Yeah, and again we see the Brexit. One thing it's not good for the economy. It just won't be, because when you close down the borders, you will need to make new agreements with all the other countries. That they still have unions in all the different countries that want the tariff and stuff like that. So you still need to negotiate stuff. So these unions or groups or politicians or whatever, they won't create tariffs on various things. So now Great Britain will need to negotiate new deals with all these different kind of countries, and I think it will be harder. And maybe some of the industry from London, some of the banks will move to Europe. Maybe some big European cities in France or Germany, or maybe even Netherlands, because they want to be in EU. They want to trade with EU, and they want to trade easily in EU. But that's harder to do in Great Britain. This I don't predict this to be a good thing for the economy, but I do think they maybe they can do a kind of Norway deal or a Switzerland deal, where they kind of are part of EU but not really a part of EU. I think that would work. That would work pretty well. And again, we see Japan exporting, importing a lot of goods. That's what makes a country rich. I know they have been kind of not progressing as much since the 90s, but they're still a rich country. They're still importing, exporting, and they of course have some. They're not importing as much working force as they should be in some instances. So it is kind of closed down country, but they do trade with other countries. That's a good thing. But you also need to import working force. For example, if you have a car industry and it could be twice as large if you just had more well-qualified employees, then these people, they will come from other countries because they see that they can make a lot of money in Japan. They'll go to Japan. But if they cannot come to Japan because they have different kind of rules for people coming into the country, then it will be harder to adapt an industry and evolve an industry. And of course, these workers will need to get out of Japan again if the industry collapses or something like that. If the industry just becomes smaller, you kind of need to adapt and travel and stuff like that. Not you, but workers in general. Someone needs to travel. Someone needs to adapt. That's why we move to big cities, because we're adapting to a new world, new kind of jobs. We're not farming that much anymore. And again, this is Berlin Wall again, another example of this closed border. Again, even on maps today, you can see that when you can see how rich the different regions are in Germany, you can see that East Germany is much poorer than West Germany. Even today, I don't know how many years have passed, but 25 years or something since these two countries have been reunited, and you can still see it on a map that closing down the borders and demolishing the industry and making it everything state-owned has not been good for the economy. And it's the same you see with North Korea versus South Korea. You see closing down the borders, not trading. It's not a good thing. Actually, you see the same thing in Iran, because if you ask the Iranian population what they want, many of them won't say anything about the Quran or Islam or stuff like that. They will tell you that they want to trade goods to United States and other countries, because their government tried to build the atomic bomb. So a lot of Western countries said that they wouldn't buy anything from Iran anymore, and that's a huge blow to the economy. So they really, the population, if you ask them, they really want to trade, they want to sell their goods, and they also want to buy goods. because if you buy goods, you can produce other kind of goods, you can sell those goods, and you can also buy cheap goods, so you don't have to produce them. So you only need to focus on the expensive goods and sell those goods. That's what rich countries do. We import a lot of cheap goods, so we don't have to educate our population to produce those kind of goods. We can use our resources, human resources, on other kind of goods, or the water we have. We don't have, for example, China doesn't have enough water for all the food they need and all the steel they need and everything. So they need to focus on one or the other. For food, you don't get as much money as for steel, but you kind of need the food. So yeah, what do you do? Maybe if they could import cheap food from Africa, then they could export steel, and then they could make a lot of money that way. I'm not really sure if that's completely correct. There's probably something else I forgot about that kind of trick. Okay, but I hope it was kind of an okay introduction to some of you, because yeah, closed borders is a really bad thing, and don't think it will solve your situation. It won't. It will only make you more poor. It can protect your individual industry, but it will make your country overall worse off. So you need to think about it this way. Do you want to protect your dying industry, or do you want to live in a healthy country?